Dear friends, today we have with us a well-known astrophysicist and cosmologist, Dr. Brad Tucker, and he's going to tell us all about the Artemis II mission. Dr. Tucker, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, no worries. It's the Artemis 2 has been a fun journey for a lot of us in space.
Yeah, so let's begin with Australia's role in this mission, because we know that Australia is involved in the Artemis II mission. It's playing a very important role. So let's start with that.
Yeah, so one of the big things Australia is working on with Artemis 2 are the communications and data. So firstly, outside Canberra at the NASA Deep Space Communication Complex, which is located at Tidbinbilla, this is part of one of NASA 3 stations that does all of the radio communications and data downloads for Artemis 2. NASA has two other stations, one in California in the US and one in Spain. But with Tidbinbilla in Canberra, the station, it has a huge amount of data that it's taking for this mission. Where I'm located at Mount Stromlo Observatory, which is not too far from Tidbinbilla outside Canberra here, we have another station that does what we call optical communications. So NASA is testing for the first time sending data via lasers, not radio waves. Now, this means that a lot of data and a lot of videos and photos can be downloaded really quickly, which is why we've been able to enjoy a lot of the sights of Artemis 2 is thanks to this technology that is allowing fast download speeds. And the only one in the Southern Hemisphere, the only one outside the US, is located here in Australia.
Yeah. And also, this is not the first time that this collaboration has taken place. I think even for the Apollo missions, I think Australia was involved. So could you shed a bit of a light on that?
Yeah, very much so. The NASA tracking stations were set up for the Apollo days. In fact, the first television broadcast during Apollo 11, when the first people walked on the moon, came via radio signals in Australia, first at Honeysuckle Creek and then at Parkes in Australia. So Australia, because of its geographical area, as well as its technology that's been huge for radio communications and data, has always played this critical role in supporting these deep space missions and exploration to the moon.
Yeah. And overall, how important do you think this mission is? Because it's after 50 years that, NASA is attempting to take humans back to moon. How important from a scientific point of view, because it's been quite a long time since humans attempted to go back to the moon themselves. I mean, we've had a lot of lunar probes and lunar explorations, but how critical is that mission from that point of view?
Yeah, look, as he said, it's been 54 years since humans went around it. As he said, we've seen a lot of growth in other countries, India, China, Japan, all landing probes on the moon. But human exploration allows you to do a little bit more. And what's different about the Artemis missions and the plan going forward is establishing long-term on the moon. Not just going there to visit, but how do we long-term operate on the moon? And using it as an operational scientific outpost. Now, during the Apollo days, we learned a lot about the moon and Earth because they did experiments and collected data and rocks. And it completely changed our knowledge of Earth and the moon and how they formed and then interact. And so that sort of leap we'll get with the Artemis missions, even just the data from Artemis 2. But longer term, using this as a place to conduct science and research and deploy technology is really going to change the way space operates. And I think a lot more than people appreciate.
Yeah. And of course, there are, I think, a lot of differences between the Apollo missions and the Artemis 2 missions in terms of the technology, in terms of, because someone was commenting on, that this spacecraft is much bigger than the one that was used by the earlier missions and so on and so forth. So technologically speaking as well, I think this is, quite an improvement on the Apollo missions.
Very much so. I think, a lot of people said, hey, why do we need a test if we've already been there? There is a lot of new technology. The rocket is a lot more efficient and more energetic. As you said, the capsule is bigger. It's able to support more crew and longer. Even the orbit and the way they're going to be going to the moon and docking with landers on the moon for Artemis 3, the next mission, all very different. So a lot of the technology has been improved based on knowledge from the Apollo days and also development in rocket and technology of the past 20 years. And so that's what this mission's a lot about. Not necessarily we didn't know how to get to the moon, but testing and making sure everything performs the way that we think before committing long-term and doing this a lot.
Yeah. Also, I think that Australia is also planning to send a lunar orbit. How is that coming along?
Yeah, so for Artemis 3 or 4, there will be a rover built in Australia that goes to the moon. And so this will start to look for and measure oxygen in the soil. So one of the big plans is how do we extract resources from the moon to use and manufacture fuel and satellites themselves on the surface of the moon. So the Australian-built rover, which is a collaboration between companies, as well as universities, including where I'm based here at ANU in Canberra, will be developing this rover and launched on the Artemis mission. And this is, again, another way this is different. In the 60s, it was very much the US and Russia competing against each other. Now the US-led mission has multiple countries participating in a lot of ways. You know, even on this mission right now, we've seen the first Canadian, the first not American, essentially, to go around the moon. So it's a really different sort of mission that a lot of other countries, including here in Australia, are involved in.
Yeah, and also the first woman who's, that sent the first female astronaut who, who's on this mission to the moon. And just lastly, Dr. Tucker, from a humanity point of view, because both Australia and even India are signatories of the Artemis Accords, and a lot more countries are getting involved in space exploration. How important is it? Do you think that space exploration, as we go more and more into space, it may change our perspective towards how we are, as Carl Sagan mentioned, that we are just on this pale blue dot. That's the only home we know. Do you think that it might shift perspectives as we go forward?
I hope so. I think so many people have been interested in watching the photos and the videos and all that sort of stuff from the Artemis missions. I think it does show what can happen when humans apply themselves best. When we think big, when we work together, and when we inspire, you do amazing things. Those amazing things also benefit us in humanity. And I think that is a great legacy of space exploration that we're seeing now, and that it isn't just for a few people or a few countries. Many people, many countries, as you're saying, have a place in the world and have a place in space. And so I hope that doesn't get lost, and I hope that gets amplified as we go forward and more and venture deeper to the moon and beyond the moon even.
Yeah. Dr. Tucker, thank you so much for taking your time and speaking with us today. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thanks.